The geopolitical landscape of the Caribbean has been set ablaze by a series of illegal and unprovoked strikes against Cuban energy infrastructure, marked by a massive tar-black plume of smoke that currently chokes the sky over the island's largest oil refinery, signaling a brutal escalation in a decade-long campaign of imperialist aggression. This kinetic assault follows a direct executive order signed by President Donald Trump, a decree specifically engineered to sever Cuba's vital oil supply lines and force the Cuban people into a state of total economic surrender. By imposing punishing tariffs on any nation bold enough to trade with Havana, the White House has effectively declared a global trade war under the thin, transparent lie that Cuba constitutes an unusual and extraordinary threat to United States national security, a fabrication that has served as the baseline for every Democratic and Republican administration since the revolutionary victory of 1959. This tightening chokehold is not an isolated incident, but a strategic expansion of the ongoing blockade against Venezuelan oil following the unilateral military assault on that country on January 3rd. And it has already successfully coerced the Mexican government into halting its crude shipments to the island, with Pemex claiming a sovereign decision that bears all the hallmarks of Washington's heavy-handed intimidation. To enforce this maritime siege, the United States military is maintaining a massive naval armada in Caribbean waters, having already seized 8 oil tankers, including the most recent capture of the Aquila II in the Indian Ocean on February 9th. A move the Pentagon describes as delivering justice, but which the international community recognizes as state-sponsored piracy. The Cuban government, through Deputy Foreign Minister Carlos Fernandez de Cosio, has denounced these seizures as an explicit act of war, rejecting the White House's claims of malign alignment and pointing out the supreme irony that the only foreign military base on the island is the U.S. occupation of Guantanamo Bay, a territory seized in 1898 and held against the will of the Cuban people for over a century. Despite the capitalist media's narrative that Havana is buckling under the pressure, President Miguel Diaz-Canel has reaffirmed that Cuba's historical position has always been one of respectful dialogue without imperialist pressure, rooted in the legacy of Fidel Castro, and that the island will never waive its sovereign right to purchase energy on the open market. This conflict is driven by the interests of the American capitalist class, specifically corporations like ExxonMobil and the Havana Docks Corporation, who are currently petitioning the U.S. Supreme Court for millions in damages over the nationalization of assets that once fueled their exploitation of Cuban workers, the very badly treated people Trump claims to protect. While Washington targets the 10 million Cubans living under this economic suffocation and threatens the deportation of tens of thousands living within the U.S., the Cuban state is responding with a massive domestic resistance effort, pivoting toward increased domestic oil production and the rapid installation of 5,000 solar units to power medical clinics and homes for children with special needs in isolated provinces. This is a battle between the world's leading power and a state that refuses to return to capitalist exploitation. And as the U.S. prepares for a threatened military assault, the global community must decide if it will stand with a sovereign nation under siege or allow a naval blockade to redefine international law through the barrel of a gun. The question for every viewer of this sitrep is simple. Does the United States have the authority to act as a global pirate, seizing ships in the Indian Ocean to starve a Caribbean neighbor? Or is this the final desperate gasp of a declining empire trying to extinguish a revolutionary example that has survived 60 years of sabotage? Stay alert. Keep your eyes on the Caribbean naval movements and leave your tactical assessment in the comments below, because the fires at the refinery are just the beginning of a much larger confrontation. Dismissed